Good afternoon. Welcome back to United TV. Latest Manchester United news. Lots of things to discuss today. Maybe a bit different, actually. One player we've seen the back of, Marcus Rashford. It looks like we're going to be having Marcus Rashford potentially coming back. I don't want to say that he is going to come back, but in terms of like the story regarding what's going to be happening with Barcelona, that's probably disappointing news. And to be honest, a lot of us probably suspected Barcelona were going to be wasting Man United's time. That's obviously, I think, a big disappointment. The other story which we're going to be looking into, and I do have a special guest coming on in a couple of minutes to discuss this as well. He's just finishing off his other stream, so we will get a special guest on. Manchester United owner Jim Ratcliffe is willing to meet the wage demands of Elliot Anderson. At this point in time, I don't know if we know how much the wage demands are. I've seen so many different stories on social media. I think the story that we're seeing here that's been put out in the national press is that he's getting paid about £100,000 a week at Nottingham Forest. The expectation is that this number will be increased by at least 50%. I think most of us probably thought we're going to be seeing a salary of like 200, 250, maybe more. So in terms of this expectation of salary, I think it obviously is going to get a massive pay rise. And maybe with this one, Man United are kind of suggesting that they might actually be trying to compete with Man City financially. This might be the first time we've seen Man United look like trying to do this. Again, this is going to be something we have to see, that if he wants to go to Man City, that's going to be a very difficult deal. But if Man United are prepared to meet the same amount of salary, maybe we're going to see something different happening. So that's one to look out for. Just before we go into it as well, welcome Nish to the chat as well. Welcome Berber. Welcome Jim. Hope everyone's having a good day. As I said, I've got a special guest who will be on in just a couple of minutes. So I will be able to get a couple of different opinions from him as well. Let me know what you're thinking in the chat as well. Should Manchester United pretty much break the bank to go all out for Elliot Anderson? We're probably going to be talking about a transfer fee of at least 100 million. I've spoken to Nottingham Forest fans on this, and all the stories are still looking like Nottingham Forest are not going to deviate on their price. They're not going to lower their price. They think they can get that sort of money for Elliot Anderson. And if we're seeing Matheus Fernandes and Tonali going to be priced at maybe 80 and 100, I think at the moment, the players on the market, the players on the market available, I think Elliot Anderson is probably the best option. So if you're looking at where you're going to spend that sort of money, it makes sense from my point of view. So this would be obviously a lot of money, but is this going to be worth it? It might change what Man United do in the rest of the window. That's kind of the only thing I was thinking. There is also going to be a few updates regarding Matheus Fernandes. There's still going to be a lot of other stories coming out as well. I think people that know that there has been some players released from Manchester United as well. That's something which is of no surprise, but that's another contract off the books regarding Sancho. So that's a bit of positive news there. So that's going to be pretty good as well. So let me know what your thoughts are. Jim says, Radcliffe can talk the talk, but can he walk the walk? I suppose the question for this is like, when you see this story, do you feel like this one? Like, what is the chance that Man United can actually get Anderson? This is going to be obviously maybe the first time we've seen Manchester United actually look like they're trying to go head to head with Man City financially. We saw a lot of stories talking about Manchester United looking at trying to get. So we said that Semenyo was our top target. We didn't move for that as well. So Yori says, if we get Anderson, we get two midfielders, and that is it. I would get Fernandes and Stiller instead of just Anderson. It might come down to that in terms of like maybe what Man United thought they could do in the transfer window. Maybe they can't actually do that. So if we thought we are going to get three midfielders in, maybe actually looking at the situation, it looks like Edison's actually looking like a better deal every single day, isn't it, in terms of how much he cost. So you would go for Fernandes and Stiller instead of just Anderson. It might be that Angela Stiller, again, he's a player we haven't talked about for a while, but maybe we're going to see a lot of these other targets in consideration. Again, I think a lot comes down to if Manchester United are looking at getting a deal done to start with, then they have to go for they can't not try and sign this player, can they? They have to try and go for Elliot Anderson if that's the player they want to build around. If they then can't get that deal done, they then have to deviate to the next one. They have to drop down to the next target. So as long as all the targets are good, and Man United's transfer strategy is still going to be to replace midfielders with a similar sort of midfielder, then it would make a lot of sense. But this would be probably considered like maybe people would change their opinion on Man United if we did actually manage to get this deal done. Good afternoon to you, Randy. Good to see you in the comments. So I will be joined by a guest very shortly, just for people that are known. Yeah, exactly. We never have to mention that name again. Like he's gone as well. Can I send you the link? I did. I thought I sent you the link. Let me just send you the link again to join. But it should be that one. So yeah, link. Yeah, you should have the link now. Get you on. So yeah, going to this one, then Man United. Clearly, what we're looking at here is going to be a big up to you, Jeff, as well. Morning chat for you, afternoon chat for me. I'm going to get JB on in just a second, like just a second. Drive safely. I won't mention like that name. I don't want to trigger Man United fans with that. No, we're going to have a nice conversation about this one and say, let's do the transfer twist. Did we actually do anything regarding like in terms of like hijacking deals, that like saying and a twist in the deal? Like last summer, I think the deals were quite straightforward, weren't they? They were not particularly tricky deals to do. But I think again, this is Manchester United. You never know what's going to be happening. And maybe, maybe Man United are moving a bit differently, but we need to prove it, don't we? Like it's one thing saying this. Like Jim Radcliffe can say he's going for players, he can say he's prepared to do this, but at the end of the day, Man United need to actually land some of these targets. It's one thing saying this is your top target again and again and again, but you have to prove it. So we hijacked Sanchez and Ronaldo too. So yeah, I'm not quite as enthusiastic about those ones, but I'll be up to you, JB.
Big up, Rich. How are we doing?
I'm good. Very good stream earlier on your channel. I think there's a lot of obviously people angry that Rashford's not money in the bank, but unfortunately it was kind of always on the cards, wasn't it? You can't trust Barcelona.
No, I think that's a little bit of an understatement, and no disrespects to fans of that club either. By the way, I'm just talking about the club itself.
I was going to say that I hope that Man United never do deals with Barcelona again based on this because they mess you around, and I think it's like no. Hopefully, players take note as well. It's ridiculous. So one of the lead stories today, and this was talked about last night as well. Elliot Anderson. Essentially, we're probably going to hear this until Elliot Anderson actually goes somewhere, aren't we? That I don't see there's going to be a resolution to this one. But Jim Radcliffe's come out now and said that he's willing to meet any sort of wage demands that Anderson has. I mean, what's your expectation of his wage demands? Because I hear like so many different numbers thrown around.
Yeah. What do I think? I mean, look, from a realistic perspective, like if we could get him for 110 and then so we pay 110 and then the wage is 150, sign him up tomorrow because that's cheap. But I almost think, if you're going to pay 110 for a player, look, they're going to demand the wages. Look, their agent is going to say, look, you're saying that he is a world-class player. I'm not saying that means you are, but from an agent's perspective, you're going to want to make as much cash from this deal. I think he's going to, the agent and him are going to want at least 200 to 250. If you can get him for between 150 and 200 at that price, I think that's a good deal. But I suspect that what City will do and what they can do is if we come in and offer 180, they'll come in and offer 250. And I don't think we'll go as high as that. So I think 100, 150, I think is too low. I think he's going to be about 250 max, possibly 3, but it depends. But I think the transfer fee dictates the wage a bit as well.
Yeah, no, I think that you're right in terms of like if he ends up being 100 million, 110, whatever that cost is going to be, it kind of pushes that up, doesn't it? You can't suddenly go, right, we're going to put you on the same as a player that we got through the academy like Mainu, and we're going to put you on the same sort of salary as a promising up and coming player because you don't pay 110 million or 100 million for a prospect, do you? You're paying for like Anderson. You're expecting him to be first team player. So for me, that does mean there's a compromise. I mean, if you look at some of the contracts that have left, we're talking about right. We can't sell Rashford, and it's because of his contract, isn't it? There's no other reason. And if you look at Sancho leaving, we couldn't sell Sancho. So it feels different with this one because I think Anderson is like a known player. Like it's not. This isn't a risk for me. There's no risk in this deal. Do you think United should like it's good to have a wage structure, but you have to be realistic as well, don't you? You have to look at it and go, we can't just keep going, oh well, he's a bit expensive, and then get compromised. So at some point we have to go. I'm not saying we should go whatever it's like here's 300k, let's get the deal done straight away. I'm just saying we should probably. It's not for me. I don't look at it and go, great, Man United's wage bill's coming down, brilliant. Like I'm not overly excited. The reason you bring a wage bill down is to bring players like this in, is my view.
I think this is where I think there's a debate to be had here, is because I'm saying in a breath of the fact that if you're going to pay that amount of cash for a player, the wages are going to be higher. But there's an argument to say here is that look, we're trying to bring the wage structure down, and whether we like it or not, if you want the best players in the world, then you're going to have to pay the prices. I do agree. But at the end of the day, and I think this is a point as well, is that what has he done to justify the wage? So what I mean is, if you bring him into the squad, for example, a Shesko, right? We paid 72. He's played in the Champions League. He's scored goals. Anderson, what has he done to justify the wage? And I think that's I think an interesting one, because you can say, well, or I can say that, look, he's going to get, the fee is high, so therefore the agent is going to push up the wage. But is that not going to cause friction in our team for players who feel like they've done more in their careers? And the only reason he's going to be paid that is because of the transfer fees. So do you think that will cause friction in the team already? Because they're going to be players who, are probably seasoned pros, like a Cunha. I don't know what he's on, 160, 100.
Yeah, I think something like that, isn't it?
Right. So if he comes in, this guy comes in, and he's only getting paid because of the fee, does that not cause issues already? Because you've got a player that they feel that hasn't earned it, and the only reason he's being paid that? Or do you think footballers are not as limited as that?
I don't know. I think it's individual, isn't it? Like where I've worked in the past, I think if salary was transparent in most work environments, it would not be well received, would it? Because people look at it. Sometimes, I think in the public sector as well, you feel like if people move around jobs, you're going to get better deals than if you stay in the same place. So, I think in Man United they have to be very careful with this one, because I think it's like, people can say, like Randy says, if they give that salary, it can upset the rest of the squad. I think it's definitely a factor. It can be a factor, and it's difficult to kind of keep that balance. But I do agree that if Man United did break the bank in terms of salary, where do you go from there? Because you're already putting someone that's going to be that age. Because Anderson, for me, you're paying that money not because of how good he is at the moment, because he's a very good player. But you're paying like that sort of money because you're assuming he's going to be world class in a few years' time. He's not, he's not 1999 Roy Keane dominating in away against Juve, is he? He's a very good player, but we haven't even dropped him in the Champions League yet to see how he does. Like he wasn't great against Villa in the Euro semi, but that's a one-off game. So there's pressure and scrutiny. I think it's the same sort of situation as like Mainu for me. Mainu kind of earned his contract because he'd been at the club for a few years and he'd gone from the academy. And I think if you look at Matheus Fernandes, he would probably be put on a contract, maybe not dissimilar to Mainu, possibly. I mean, I'm guessing like where the wage structure would be. And Elliot Anderson's only got like an extra year experience in the Premier League, and we're looking at like, could you realistically give him double the salary of someone that's played like the same amount of like games in the Premier League? And you can make an argument that Mainu has excelled in a tournament with England as well. So it would make it, if I was Maine's agent and someone came in on double the money, I'd be thinking, hang on a minute.
But if you think about this, so Manu scored a goal in an FA Cup final, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're talking about players here that, like I understand it. I absolutely understand that if you want the best of the best, but again, with this sort of deal as well, you're paying top end for a player, right? But what you're almost saying is, realistically, Sancho's just left, right? He's been here for 5 years. He's 26 years old. He should be now in his prime. He should be leaving, and we should be making some sort of cash on it. If you do this deal, let's just say realistically, in the next 5 years, he'll be 27. He'll be in his prime. Can we? And I'm not saying that this is necessarily the question to ask, but Ineos do want to buy them young and sell them at some point. I almost think we're saying here, if we're going to buy this player at this price, we're not going to make anything back. He is the sort of player you bring into this club and say he's going to be here for 10 years. He literally is going to be here until the end of time. Because I think there are certain players that you can buy, like a Shesko, for example. If he becomes the world's best, you could probably see him being sold for 130 million quid. But with this, you're saying, look, we think he's going to be world class. He's never going to be sold. He's going to be here for 10 years, which is really rare, I think, for a player of that age, because you are saying, look, he's going to be our next big player for the next 10 years. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, this can't be an investment, can it? This is not an investment. This is like Man United, when they bought Roy Keane, they didn't think, oh, maybe we can get some profit from Roy Keane in a few years' time. They're thinking, this is the kind of player you want to build around.
Yeah.
And for me, that's why I'm thinking that, again, you have to find a balance, because if Elliot Anderson comes to Man United, performs well, improves over a couple of years, he's going to be getting he's going to get an even bigger contract when he hits his prime. There's no doubt in that at all. So I think Elliot Anderson, he's going to be getting the money at some point, whether it's about getting more up front and then getting slightly smaller pay rise in the future, then that might be one way of looking at it. I'm just thinking with Man United, I know people get very skeptical that we're trying to do deals to make profit. And I remember speaking to a Chelsea fan who sometimes goes on, I'm not sure if it went on TalkSport, it went on a few different outlets, and his view was that Man United are buying better quality players than Chelsea, that we're buying players to keep and build around. And I hope that's the case. But I'd imagine, like, if United if we go for speculative buys, where we go for players like 10, 15 million, and they're quite young, I think they can be investments, but they could also work out, and we could get lucky and get a cheap bargain. Like, I think Dorgu is someone that, he could be a first team player for a while, or maybe, at some point, maybe Man United would sell him. We don't know in a couple of years' time, but he would be certainly profitable. But I think with Elliot Anderson, Matheus Fernandes, they're kind of like blocks you build around, aren't they? Like Mainu, we shouldn't sell Mainu, because if we sell Mainu, we're just going to have to spend the same amount of money, and probably have to pay a bigger salary. So I think it's like, for me, it's difficult, isn't it? Because if I saw a couple of comments, like Shanice in the comments said, abandon the wage structure, pay what it takes. And I don't, like Ryan's saying, some players are financial investments. Thing is, though, do you think I would say it's an investment in a different way, that Man United might be investing in Anderson with the idea that we're going to be making the money in the Champions League by participating in it every single season. And that's kind of what we're seeing as the investment. Like, we're not going to make profit in terms of like selling him, but we will make profit as a club.
Yeah, and that's one of the arguments I've had before is this, if you want to be successful, there's a balance, right? Between, you need to spend the money to make the money, right? Without a doubt, if you don't have the players, you don't get into the Champions League. If we get into the Champions League every single year, we will be able to compete again. But to go kind of to the comments there about, the profit, the trophies, sadly, we shouldn't be thinking about this, but the two go like hand in hand. And the problem is that if you go back to, we look at Lukaku's, Sancho's, Antony's, if we do that again, we're now paying for the sins of the past. This is now what I think we need to be very, very shrewd. And when I say shrewd, I don't mean we need to be looking for a bargain. We need to be constructing a squad. If you look at a PSG, I think they are the perfect example, blend of, they brought in some players, they brought in the youth players. I'm not saying here that we need to buy players for profit. But what we do need to do is we need to think about team. We need to think about, are they the best for the team? Like, we talk about individual players that we should build like around them. Yes, I do think we should do. But if you look at all the best teams in the world, without doubt, they're a team. If anybody can name your singular team in the last 5 years with one player, and everybody passes to that player that have won the league, I'll be astounded, because I don't think that there sort of are. But I think we do need to get these sorts of plays, because if it pushes you over the line, it's worth the money. If you buy him like 110, and we get into the Champions League every single season, we get first or second, it pays for himself. He pays for himself. So I think there's a balancing act. I think you need to balance.
Yeah, I agree. I think with this one, it's almost like there's going to be a trade-off at some point. I don't think Man United can do all the deals people want to see done in one window. I know that I saw comments saying about Lewis Hall, how much he would cost. Newcastle are going to rightly demand a huge amount of money for any players now. They don't need to sell players, as far as I can see. They've got big money for Gordon. They're going to probably get big money for Tonali if he leaves, but they're going to demand a lot of money. Sam says go and get Tonali, but Tonali might end up costing a bit more than we think as well. So there's no guarantee that Tonali is going to be available for the sort of price people think we can negotiate. I think Tonali might be just as expensive, because why would Newcastle sell him at a cheap price if a lot of players are going for big money? So Randy says that we need numbers in the squad. Like, we've got Champions League football, so it's difficult, isn't it? Can you? We do need more numbers in the squad, but I don't want to. I don't really want to compromise on a midfield signing. Like, if Anderson was available, I'd want to try and get him, because I get. For me, it would be in a year's time. We're not talking about midfield, are we? If we sort it out now, we're talking about maybe Anderson and Mainu being our midfield options for a long time, based on their age. And if you got Fernandes, for me, again, I'd forget about midfield for a long time. But would you be happy with? I got asked this question last night, actually. Would you be happy if Man United said, right, forget left back, we are gonna spend a huge amount of money on midfield and do what we did last year, fix just one part of our team, maybe get a bit of cover around the team, but we wouldn't be spending big on other signings?
The problem for me then is, you go, well, it's almost then a bit like this club is trying to sell us expectations. So in one breath, they're trying to sell us we're going to win a league in 2 years' time, and then in the next breath, they're saying that they can't do everything in a window, which I agree with, because I think this squad does need more. But would you rather not balance the team out? Because look, we all, again, we are going to be talking about winning the league. Can we win the league? How far are we going to get into the Champions League? The problem for me here is that if we don't get quality as well as the quantity, how are we going to battle on the two fronts? So yes, well, I do agree that I think it's we do need to strengthen up. I think we need to be able to do across the whole of the pitch, because look, is the value here buying one player? And yes, we might do well in a competition, but the danger for me is, are we going to end up being like Spurs? And I'm not saying that we are, but do we sacrifice positions on the pitch that we may need, and that will mean, look, maybe we don't win a league this season, maybe we don't get into the semi-finals, maybe all we do this season is that we strengthen, we get one superstar player, and then we buy another 4 or 5. So it means that we can be consistent, and then we buy a player every single season. What I personally would like to see is, I'd like to see a genuine elite player, but not at the cost of strengthening positions, on the basis that we're going to be in Champions League, Premier League, the FA Cup, League Cup. We need a squad. I value squad more than one player.
Yeah, that's kind of where it's, for me, like, Anderson fits perfectly, but it is obviously a lot of money. It depends. Would you, when you look at the price of, like, say, Lewis Hall, is left back a key position for you as well? Is that one where you think we need to go quite big on that one?
Yeah, they're all key positions. I mean, look, I think if there's an opportunity, I believe sometimes, look, you've got a budget, right? But if there's an opportunity to get a good player or one of the best players, and I think at times you just have to suck it up and you have to go and do the deal. My only question on Lewis Hall is this, and this is what I'm going to ask the people on here as well, is, do you think he's worth 70, 75 on the basis that he will be a record fee for a left back. That is the sort of money that they're going to ask for. And then when we go back in next season for a right back, are we then going to be expected to pay that again? So what I'm saying here, there are two things at play. Number one, I'm not disputing the talent. I'm not saying that he's not a fantastic player. But are we happy as a fan base to say, look, we're going to pay a world record fee for a left back? Will it come to bite us in the arse? I don't know. But if you look at a Luke Shaw, we paid a lot of cash for him, minus injuries. I think he's been a fantastic player. If we get that, then of course, yes. But are we comfortable with that? Are we comfortable now paying a world record fee for a left back?
Yeah, to me, it's a really difficult one. Like £70 million. When I was first talking about him, I think the first story I saw was they want at least 50, and I thought, okay, 50, 55, 60, and then you start pushing the price up, and then you think, what, 110 for like, and maybe when you're looking at it, it feels a bit like if you're say in your personal life, you go, right, I want to buy a house, you can't really afford it, but you think, oh, well, maybe I could stretch, and then you think that maybe it's actually worth it in the long run. The only way I can see this as being like justifiable is if you look at Lewis Hall, £70 million, Eddie Anderson, 100, 110, and you look at spending maybe more money than Man United want, but maybe in the next year, as like our finances should improve as well. But if we're signing Eddie Anderson, Lewis Hall, and we're getting other quality players in, like we should be looking to lock up Champions League football. Like we shouldn't be dropping out Champions League football. That otherwise something's going wrong. So I can see there being some merit, but I'm not sure whether that people can actually spend. I think Man United is definitely moving in the right direction financially, but I'm not sure whether they can spend this much without kind of getting extra financing into the club, which again is like a different story. So I think that maybe this transfer window, I'm actually a bit surprised by some of the transfer kind of like prices put on players. Like when I saw the story about Alex Scott, 80 million, I was just thinking, I don't know if these prices are going to be accurate. They seem crazy, but I'm just wondering whether there is going to be a bit of inflation. You know how the rule changed, like PSR is not a thing anymore. That is there for some reason, and there's a lot of money in the Premier League. Are we actually seeing transfers increase to this? Maybe Man United had the budget and thought, actually, we can get three midfielders, we can get a left back, and maybe they're thinking, bloody hell, we didn't expect the inflation to be quite this much.
I think what it is for me is I think now that it's all about protecting the asset. So I think years ago, for those of you who are as old as me, it was always the bigger teams could walk into the smaller teams, and there wasn't a lot that they could do. Now I think primarily, what teams do now is they look to protect their asset, their player. Now, how they have the ability to do that is because basically, like they don't need to sell. So a Bournemouth, they're comfortable. They know they've got the cash that now comes from the league, so they don't need to sell the player. They're going to protect the player. And also as well, I think there's the 5-year deal, right? Where I think it's very good for us and very good for teams who want to spread out the cost. I think it works fantastically well. But also it goes against us on the basis that, well, if you put your asset, your player on a 5-year deal, you literally protect that player, that asset for a 5 years. So you've got to pay a premium. I think it's almost a bit like if you go to somebody with cash, I think you'd be able to get the deal done cheaper. So I think if you went to, wherever, to like the Hammers and said, we will pay you £60 million in cash, they would rather do that deal now because it means that they've got the physical cash. I think what teams suffer from is what the benefit they were trying to get from the 5-year deal. On top of that, the Premier League is so rich, the smaller teams don't have to sell. So I think it's the combination of those two things now.
It makes it difficult, doesn't it? Because in the past, that Man United would have maybe disproportionately large amount of money compared with other clubs, and I think the TV deal for me has made it more of an even playing field. Like when you see teams near the bottom spending 40, 50 million pounds, which we have seen, and you think, wow, and lots of teams are breaking. And don't forget that Matheus Fernandes cost 40 million pounds for West Ham, and they sold, I think, Luca Paqueta for like 40, so 40, 45 million. So a lot of these teams in the relegation zone are like buying and selling players for 40, 45 million pounds. This is kind of standard deal. So when Man United are looking at trying to get the very best players or get the best targets, then obviously they're like twice as much. So maybe that's what they're looking at. I think West Ham are looking at. Do you remember the Elliot Anderson move from Newcastle, and they were forced to sell him for about 35 million?
Mm-hmm.
What's happening? I think West Ham are thinking like that. They're not going to look at selling him that cheap, but they're probably thinking whatever we sell him for, he's probably just going to go up in value. So I would say that it's a shame Man United can't get in. Like if also West Ham would not put in a sell-on clause because Man United are not that sort of club. We're not going to buy a player to sell them on. So that's probably why we do end up paying a bit more, because when we saw Greenwood, for example, we sold them quite cheap, but we put a significant sell-on clause thinking, he's going to go to Marseille, he's going to move somewhere else. And I think the difficulty Man United's got is if we're going to buy a top quality player, we're not like Chelsea. You can't put in a sell-on clause because the chances are he's not going to leave, and maybe that's going to hurt us a bit.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's right as well. And I think with West Ham as well, there's a 15% sell-on clause as well. So they're going to want to whatever profit they make, they're going to lose 15% on that as well. So I actually think this is an uplift of 15% as well. I think if that wasn't in there, they bought him for 40 million, they sell him for 70 million, they make a bunch of money, but they're going to lose at least 9 of that. So, and they need the cash. So I understand what they're trying to do, but from a realistic perspective, I don't think they're going to get anywhere near that. I think 70, 75 max. And would people be happy with that as well?
Yeah, I don't. It's going to the deals. It feels like the deal's going to cost a bit more with this one. Like I saw this story about West Ham, and there's a few stories about Matheus Fernandes coming out now. Do you believe that there's a significant interest from Real Madrid to start with? Because that's one angle that's been pushed out there. I'm not
I
sure.
think, as I said on my show before this, I think so. Mendes is his agent, right? And we all know what he's like. He's the super agent. He's going to try and push this as much as he possibly can. Now, do I think Madrid are in there? I do. I do think they do like the player. Now, Perez has come out and basically said that he wants to sign a player who's 150, right? Okay, fine. Vitinha is apparently he's not going to go. Neves from PSG is not going to go. So he's left with a couple of options, right? People are going to tell me that he's going to shift from him and go to West Ham and pay 85 for a player that's gone down twice. Now, I'm not saying that because of him, but Madrid don't behave that way. Like they're not going to do that. So what I think happens here is I think they are, but they're not interested at that price. So I think what we're going to have here is you could have potentially whereby Mendes is going to try and be pushing this deal for 85. And it's, I think, whoever blinks first. So I think if Madrid go, West Ham are not going to have an option and they will have to sell, I think, for 70 million. Or do we move away from the deal and then Madrid will get him? I think they'll get him for 65 to 70 because it's harder to say no to Madrid than it is to us. And maybe Madrid will do some sort of loan deal to them as well. So I think, are Madrid interested? Yes. Do I think they want him as much as us? Probably not. But I think it's something that we've got to be aware of. And Jose apparently wants him as well. So I think a lot of this is like agent led. It's classic. Let's hype up the player so the agent can make a load of money as well.
Yeah, no, I was thinking regarding Real Madrid that it felt like they would go for the finished article. If they're looking at trying to spend big money, they'd want to go for someone like at least so I don't really believe they're looking at trying to get. Oh, they offered money for Alvarez, didn't they? Knowing it would be refused, so I'm not sure whether that's just to annoy their rivals. But I think with this, like if you're looking at Real Madrid, they would look for someone like Vitinha, surely, or someone like that. Someone from PSG. Cavacheli would be a good player. I think he's a really good player, but I'm not sure where to go for him. I think Fernandes. It seems like the sort of deal that Real Madrid would want to get a cheaper deal for someone that's an up and coming one. Because if you unveil Matheus Fernandes, is he going to push out Valverde and Tchouaméni out of the team? I don't know. It's always going to be like forgotten about if he goes to the Bernabeu. He's a good player. I think he needs to get games though.
I don't think he's the player that the Madrid fans would get up for either. And like you've got to look at, we've got high standards at our club, but they've got super high standards as well. So it's almost a bit like, are they going to be happy with that sort of signing after what they've been promised? It's almost kind of not fair on the player. So I think he'd be better served to come to us, because it's almost a bit like we would celebrate the player. I think we'd be happy. I
You know
think
what I was
if you went,
thinking, JB? I was thinking if he comes to Man United, our expectations are going to be let's try and do okay in the Champions League, because we've not been in there for a couple of years. I think a lot of fans will be patient because we like the idea of younger prospects. Generally, depending on like which fans you are, but a lot of people would go, right, let's be patient, let's see how he develops, and be excited about the fact we've got an up and coming youngster. I think Real Madrid would be like, right, is this guy going to help us win the Champions League? And then that's kind of the expect. So their expectations are pretty much like, where's the next R9? Like where's the next
agreed.
like
Yeah,
Galactico?
agreed. Yeah, agreed. And I'm hoping that that's what's going to deter him and stop him from going. But I don't think, as I've read reports, that it's going to be both Anderson and him. I think it's going to be one or the other. And I think that's who we are right now.
Like, who would you go for if you were picking? Like, assuming like there's a few options on the table,
Yeah.
and you've got what's Anderson going to be realistically? 110? Do you think? Like, do you think he goes for more than that?
I think Marinakis wants a record fee. I do. I think he wants 125. Now, look, it shouldn't really be up to us caring about the money. I can tell you from the financials what we can and can't spend, etc. But at the end of the day, I don't really necessarily care, right? But it's a case of, as long as whatever we pay for a player doesn't stop us from enacting our plan. So if our plan is 5 players and we can sign him and still get the players, then yeah. And as long as it doesn't stop us from going again next season. So what I mean is, if we're going to go for these players, I have no issue with how much we sign the players for, as long as they're not going to impact us the next window, as long as they're not going to stop us from signing our targets, as opposed to who I would go for. I think Anderson is the clear choice. Now, do I think he's like Zidane, as was mentioned? I'm not going to name names on that one.
Yeah.
But again, it's a very interesting take that's how people will see this player. From a controversial perspective, I don't necessarily think is there that much difference in Fernandes and Anderson at the moment. Is it, if we get him for say 80 and Anderson is 125, is there difference? Like, neither have played in the Champions League, neither have won a league. Can somebody tell me? I've watched both players play. I kind of like them both. What's the difference? What makes Anderson 125 and Fernandes 75 to 80? Like, there is a difference, but is there that much of a gulf in class between the two?
No, I think with this, my view probably differs from other people. Where I think Matheus Fernandes is a very good football player,
So do I.
and I think they're just different. They're just different, or maybe they excel at different things. Like if you look at the long range passing abilities of Matheus Fernandes, he's better at that than Anderson. If you look at someone that's going to just be putting in more challenges, win the ball back, I think Anderson is better at that at the moment. But if you look at a lot of other things, we're kind of arguing about two extremely good players, aren't we? So it's for me, it's like if Man United said we're not getting Anderson, we're going to get Matheus Fernandes, but that means we can get Lewis Hall or we can get Alex Scott and we got a backup striker or left wing.
Yeah.
I'd be like, excellent, the plan works. Because for me, if we got 11 players on the pitch and the system works and you've got the right profiles in midfield, you've got a very good left back, you've got good attacking options, and you've got good cover on the bench, I wouldn't mind too much whether Anderson is in midfield or whether Alex Scott is in midfield or Matheus Fernandes is in midfield. So I feel like for me, the difference between getting Tonali and Matheus Fernandes, I would probably lean towards Matheus Fernandes because he's like 5 years younger. I think it's a better deal financially, but also I don't think Tonali would elevate the team in a way that Matheus Fernandes couldn't. So again, it's the different opinion, and I think if Man United get, when was the last time we got some really good young attacking midfielders in our team, or good quality midfielders? I can't remember like the last time we did that. Like Casemiro was like a top quality player, but he was at the wrong age, I think, in terms of when we signed him. But Koeman is maybe the one, and I think Koeman is going to be again developing, and I think it could be really exciting to have someone like Matheus Fernandes or Elliot Anderson. And if there's £45 million difference, I would be hard pushed to give you a justification of that. Like, when you're buying things for your house and you look at things and go, oh, this is like a nice table, or this is like a nice piece of furniture. And if you see something that looks pretty similar, but it's like 50% more, you'd look at it and go, well, I don't see where the value is. Like, again, for me, it's like people might have different opinions, and maybe for some reason Jim Radcliffe goes, actually, there is value. We want to go for Anderson, but for me, I don't really see it.
And I agree with that. And like, I don't like to use the word like a value. Like, what are we? We like Sainsbury's FC or something, and I'm not a fan of that. But I think what we need to remember as well is that if these players are out, who comes into the squad? So let's just imagine a world now where Anderson, he comes in, Ugarte stays. So Ugarte, Edison, and Mainu. Let's just say Anderson's out, Ugarte comes in. This is why we need squad depth, is because as much as I want the best of the best, if Luke Shaw is injured, who comes in for Luke Shaw? These are the questions. We need to go beyond the first team in some respects, and we need to look at the total squad. Now, look, we do need the midfield, but my fear is I think I could sacrifice. I don't want to, but I could sacrifice, and as long as they are fit, the defense, I think we could do with getting a left back. But the most important thing for me is we need the midfield squad depth this season, but not at the sacrifice of, one player. So I think we need the value, but I think we need to be smart and we need to be sure. So I think Elliot Anderson, for me, if we go above 110 and it's 115, 120, I'm out. I'm out because I just think that we could do so much more with that cash than not. And I don't want a situation where we imagine this. We've got Anderson 125 and Ugarte is still playing. Can you imagine having those two players? We can't have that. We can't have that. Ugarte must go. So I want a team whereby the nucleus, the midfield, is balanced and Ugarte is gone. I just want Ugarte gone.
Yeah, I think Agate has to leave. Like for me, he has to leave. And I was looking at the team and kind of what we're looking at trying to do. I'm thinking at the moment, like last season, you'd have Agate on the bench, and maybe Agate and Collier at one point on the bench, but Collier was like being loaned out and I think injured. So I think we've like if you got Agate on the bench, like for me that wasn't good enough. But if we have a situation where let's say like if Anderson's starting, like I said, and you were making the point that if you have Agate on the bench, obviously that's a massive vulnerability. If players do get injured, players get suspended, and you want to get a bit of rotation potentially if you've got like 3 games in like 7 or 8 days or something. But I think if you got someone like Matheus Fernandes and Alex Scott as an example, I'm not saying we could do that for the same sort of money, but maybe 110, 115 for Anderson and what's Agati like 25, 30 possibly. You're looking at maybe that's like £70 million a player, isn't it? So maybe that could be possible. Maybe you could get that. And maybe you could say, right, we're going to have maybe Mainu and Fernandes are going to be starting and you have Alex Scott on the bench, or maybe Angela Stiller, or insert your midfield option here that's going to cost less than £70 million. There might be, people would talk about Belieber, but there could be quite a few. So I think it does give you a bit more flexibility. And maybe that's the difference between Man United going, yeah, maybe we'll go for, I don't know if we will go for Lewis Hall because I think he might be incredibly expensive, but maybe there's options around as well that United will be looking at. I think Balde's been mentioned. I think there's like Brown been mentioned. So there are a few players that we have been looking at. So maybe we keep tabs on a few of those. So I think a lot of people want to see Man United buy the best players. The difficulty is that my kind of view on Matheus Fernandes is maybe in 3 years' time, Matheus Fernandes is actually a better player than Anderson, because players we're talking about 21-year-olds, so we don't know, and it's again this is down to the scouting, isn't it, and judgment call. Because I think if you're going to buy a player at, say, for example, Man United buy Dwight York, we buy Yapstam and Robin van Persie, you know what you're getting, don't you? You put them straight in the team, they do what they can do, you know what. And with Matheus Fernandes, I don't know what he's going to be like at 25, but he could be amazing. Like maybe plateaus at 22. I don't know. It's unlikely, but I think he would be a good option. What if Eddie Anderson just plateaus at 23? What if he's like hit his peak? I mean, it sounds crazy, but you never know.
And nobody can tell you this. And again, everything that I say, everything that everyone says is just a guess. I mean, Anderson himself can't tell you in 3 years' time he's going to be the best player, right? You know, I think you can tell with certain players. You can tell he's going to be a good player. Fernandes, I think, is going to be a fantastic player. I almost think, again, are we being drawn? And the fact that we're talking to these players, and I know a lot of viewers on here and in mine, they talk about going for these Singares. They're talking about going for these, these less expensive players. Is it a failure? And this is a question to you. Is it a failure to this club that we always get dragged into these deals? Why aren't we good enough to go and get? And again, you can't always buy potential, but why don't we do that? Look, Edison, for example, people will say, and it is like the business seems good, but we didn't scout him. He's been on our list for 3 years. It's almost a bit like we've got the list and gone, right, he's gone, and like he's still here.
Yeah, number 7, Edison, come in. Your numbers up.
Exactly. So why haven't we? As much as I like to be linked to these players, why aren't we also being linked to a Singari? Why aren't we being linked to these players? I almost feel like it's the same old story again. We've been linked to Tanales, we've been linked to these players, which is a natural thing and what we should be doing. But why aren't we also been talking about Singari? Why aren't we talking about Agume? A Stiller, like Stiller for me. Spoiler alert! Like tonight, you're going to come on to the show tonight, and we're going to go through players. So I've done a comparison. Right, it is so fascinating about all of these players who comes out on top, and I almost think it just fascinates me why we're not being linked to more of these kind of, not lesser players, because I don't think that's right, but why can't we go for these gems? Exactly,
I think coming stars, aren't they?
Yeah, but again, so go on.
I was going to say, because I remember we've done things over the last couple of years. Like Boadi was one. I think there was Jashari, who I believe went to AC Milan. You got Mastantuono, who went to Real Madrid. And I'm thinking with this one, maybe Man United are that maybe there's I don't know, maybe we're looking for some sort of balance. I know people say there's risk. There's always risk involved. I think with the issue with Boadi is the price just goes up and up and up. Like now he's going to cost more, but I think maybe the price is quoted initially seems quite low. I'm just wondering what the actual price would be. So maybe like Boadi seems like a really good deal. I think I like him. I think he's a fantastic player. But I guess if as soon as Man United linked him, is he actually going to cost more than we suspect? I don't know. I'm wondering whether the demands at Man United as well is going to be that maybe Wadi would take a bit longer to get up to speed. It's just a guess. So I think with Man United, they're kind of mindful that there is a bit of a time pressure. Okay, not the same as Real Madrid, but there is going to be more pressure than say at a Brighton. Now, if you go to Brighton and Brighton finished 8th, it's fine, isn't it? And no one complains. If Man United finish 8th, it's a catastrophe. And apart from that one season when we finished 15th, it was like be the worst season for decades. So I think that the difference is going to be that you'd almost have to do like. But would Brady get enough game time at Man United, say next season, if we bought Anderson and we bought Edison, or would he be? I think he should do, but I'm wondering whether United are thinking we're just going to get players that are going to play loads of games initially, and maybe Brady's the sort of player we could do in a few years' time. Like not obviously not the same player, but maybe we're not ready to do that. I don't know, because with Real Madrid they've got the team there already, haven't they? And players can come in. I don't know. Would you be comfortable signing Berardi and throw him in at the first team, or would you? Because for me, I like him. I'm not sure how effective it would be, but Cherky worked really well. That was a signing I was quite keen on. Cherky, I thought he was like pound for pound, like a really good option. Like if only we hadn't have finished 15th, we might have had a bit more of a chance.
I think we've said it before on here. I think I've said it on here before. The reason why we can't do it is because if you look at the reason why City can do it, if you look at Liverpool and Arsenal can do it, it's because they've already got the squad. It's like back in the day, and again, I hate to do it, but when we go back, when the reason why we were able to bring in the likes of a Paul Scholes when he was younger, the Nicky Butt, is because they had the protection of the senior players. And can you imagine this kid? He comes in. There's no protection. There's no Roy Keane to shelter him if he has a bad game. Like these young players don't have the platform. This is why Erasmus failed, was because we expected him to come in and expected him, well, not necessarily us, but the club did, expected a kid 20 years old to lead the line. How many 20-year-old players have ever come into this club and led? Rooney, I could probably say him, Giggsy, and even then Giggsy couldn't lead, but he still came into a squad of pros. Rooney came into a squad of pros, and we're asking these young. Can you imagine asking a young kid to come into the midfield in this squad and be a first team player? It's going to be very, very difficult. You've got to be a talent. You've got to be some player.
That's what we did with Mainu, wasn't it? Mainu came in as an 18-year-old, and to be honest, like considering his age, he did incredibly well in that team. So I think that's one where, but for me, I think it was not the best thing. In terms of a club, Man United should not be putting an 18-year-old in midfield and going, right, that's it. And he played about 30 games in a row. So absolutely crazy. And I think that with this, that when Man United brought in Scholes, he was joining an established team that was already a Premier League winning team. And he wasn't even, he could just do nothing and no one would notice. And it's like Beckham would not be expected to have the impact. And what we're seeing now is people talk about JJ Gabriel, I think it's like, just turning 16, and people are already thinking, right, get him in. And that's like insane pressure, isn't it? So I think if Wardy signed for Man United, people would be going, right, put him in, let's see what, and it'd just be like, I think for me, like Buardi, I think he's fantastic, but he's only just turned 18. And I think for me, Buardi needs to play week in, week out at Lille, develop his game, and that's going to be maybe the ideal situation for him. As much as I want him at Man United, I think if I was Buardi, I'd stay where he is, work on his game, just get more and more games and experience. And if he gets Champions League football, that's brilliant as well. But I could see teams going in for him because he's that good, and maybe they'd be looking at loaning him out, which they might do. Like if Arsenal were looking at him, then maybe they loan him out. I don't know. Gaz says something about. Let me just find the comment. It just disappeared. It said, "For now, we need players that are ready to go. Then we can think about future stars." And so, do we have that luxury right now? So that's what I think. If you're looking at, is Matheus Fernandes like a compromise in that regard? Then he's probably good to go in terms of like a couple of years Premier League experience under his belt, but he wouldn't be expected to be playing every single match either. Potentially, if we got other signings in, Edison brings experience, and it's not going to be, it's not going to be the big step up, is it? Because Fernandes has played in a struggling team. He's going to have better quality teammates to support him, and it's a bit. It's not ideal, but it's probably better than it could be.
I think if you think about Fernandes, right, he's been in a dogfight literally the whole season, and you find out who you are. Like you find out more about who you are when you fail rather than if you win, right? I think so. So the fact he's been in a dogfight the whole of the season and he's not like hidden away. He's, they've played some really, really hard games and he's shone in those games. Anderson, you could almost say the same thing for him as well. The fact that they were in the Conference League or wherever they they weren't this season, were they? But the fact that he has he has been in the dogfight as well. He's got into England on the fact that he is playing in that squad. They've had a rough season. They've come through it. These are the players that I actually like. I like these players who have something to fight for. That's not trying to win something. You know, these players from these lower end clubs, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way because we were 15th last season. Is that you want these players with a bit of fight, and I can see why Fernandes. You can just see it. You can just tell he's got the fight. He's got the bite. You can just see it.
That's what someone was saying last night, that two teams that are struggling, like massively struggling because they both got relegated. I think Southampton were never really in much of a fight to stay in the league when they came up. But you look at with Matheus Fernandes, he's never hiding from the ball. He's always like on it, and maybe sometimes he tries too much, and maybe he does too much, and but his numbers are still very good considering how many passes he makes, his completion rate. But I think sometimes he's forcing the issue because he's one of the better players, and we're talking about someone that's 21 being one of the best players in a Premier League team. Which again, we played West Ham this season. They were not an easy they were not easy opposition. They were very tough in both games. And I think people look at the Premier League and think bottom three teams. I think the bottom three teams have all got players that could play for most of the top teams. Like there is a lot of. It's a bit weird situation, but it reminds me a little bit of the 90s where you could see like a Matt Letitia in a relegation fight every single season. And you could see like the bottom five teams had arguably someone we'd want. The difference now is like maybe 30 years ago they wanted to stay where they were. Now they're too expensive. That's the only difference. But it's the same principle. You can't rock up to any team in the Premier League. Arsenal found this. You go to a team fighting relegation, it's a really difficult game, and because they've got good players.
So, agreed completely. Agreed.
I'll go for a few of the comments. Scott says, if West Ham price Fernandes at 85 million, why not put an extra 20, 25 million and get Anderson? He seems like a more rounded player, would make a midfield look better. So it's difficult to say, isn't it? That Scott saying, if you think Anderson is the perfect fit and it doesn't ruin like Man United's transfer plan, I would say go for it. But I don't know, how far the budget stretches. That's the only thing I could comment on. But I do agree with you, JB. For me, it's always about the team, isn't it? And about the squad rather than like, if you could say that Anderson was a better football player, but in terms of what Michael Carrick wants to do and what the coaches and the plan is, if Matheus Fernandes fits the idea better, I'd go for him. Like I would say, look, you've got to make a decision. Like we've seen this with England teams in the past, isn't it? You don't pick the best 11 players. You construct a team, and that's how you win competitions.
And this is why we've had the bomb squad as well, by the way, is because, and I'm not suggesting he's that player, but we've always done that. We've always gone for like this, look at the price of the player, the Sancho. We've never bothered to question and say, look, is Sancho or Lukaku or an Anthony, are they right for the team? Is the attitude right? And what we ended up being was a collection of individual players who put themselves before the club. Now, Anderson, I think, is different completely. I don't think he's that sort of player. Those are the questions I think we need to ask: are they the right fit for the club? What does the data say? Look, I'm a massive fan of figures and numbers and stats, right? The data can't always tell you everything that you need to know, but I think with this sort of stuff, and there's a difference between the two, I think you have to go with that as well. But I think there's many factors. But then saying that, sometimes there are players who would just star players, and you just know. For me, the jury on Anderson at 125, because that's what I think he'll be, is I don't know whether I just don't see this Zidane, and I'm going to go back to that. I just don't see that sort of comparison to Zidane yet. I don't see that comparison to if I'm going to pay 125 or 110 for a player, I want to know that he's properly. He's going to come in. He's got that experience. I don't see that yet with him. I just don't see it yet with him.
Well, I've got a question for you, kind of general question. Over like your time of supporting Man United, and all the different transfer windows, what players have you been like, we definitely need to get this guy? Like, you can go back 10, 20, whatever, however many years. What players have you been like, we need to get this player in?
I think players like Rooney comes to mind instantaneously. He is the one that comes to mind. 16 years old, you saw him play, and instantaneously I was just like, you've got to you've got to get that play. And you look at the Champions League, the first game that he played in, he scored a hat trick, takes the ball off Giggsy for a free kick and bangs it in, right? It's those sorts of players. Rio as well. Rio, I saw that sort of player. Cristiano, I mean, I watched him play, but again, I wasn't always kind of like that. Pogba at the time as well. To be fair, I was sort of like, I wanted to come back. I saw the player. I wanted that sort of player. Ronaldinho. So Ronaldinho, right?
Ronaldinho.
He was supposed like he'd been pretty much been signed. I was so looking forward to. I was telling everybody that we're going to sign this next best player. He didn't sign. Cantona as well. I'm old enough to remember that signing. I remember thinking we've got to sign him. I thought he was going to be brilliant. I didn't know he was going to have that impact. But again, it goes to show that it's very rare. And I was very fortunate coming from an era whereby, because we had such a good team, there weren't many players that excited me because we'd already had them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We sort of had the likes of Beckham's goals, which we didn't sign. Giggsy. So I wasn't really too excited about players. And when I was, I knew that they were a good player. So Rooney, for me, I think was probably one of the last players that I thought, do you know what, this is going to be a megastar player. And pleased to say that he sort of was. So for me, that was probably the last time I was just really like, yeah, we've got to get this player. This player's going to be just world class.
Now, interestingly, though, you mentioned the players that I've actually said the same. When I was saying like no-brainer signings you've got to get, I always say Rio Ferdinand, because we had a dreadful defense. We had like Laurent Blanc, or we got rid of Jaap Stam for different reasons. And like Rio Ferdinand was outstanding when Leeds got to semi-final of the Champions League. He was like so good. I was like, we need to get Rio Ferdinand. And actually, interesting story about Wayne Rooney. I knew someone that's an Everton season ticket holder, and he was telling me, this is before Wayne Rooney had made his debut. He said, we got a guy in the academy who's going to be way, way better than Michael Owen. And I was thinking, okay, this is just Everton fans talking. People tell you that. And he told us to a few of us. And then I think it must have been like a couple of weeks later, he made his debut against Arsenal, scored that goal. And we're like, hang on a minute. And then we went back to the guy, go, tell us about Wayne Rooney again. Like, and when you watch him, you're just thinking, the guy looks like he's like 25 when he's 16. And he was just, absolutely. It feels like he's been playing football in secret somewhere for years. He's so good. And I think those were two. Maybe Van der Sar, I think, is one that we should have got when Schmeichel left.
Yeah. But I just can't express to people like the Roonster, like how good he is. Like, people go on about kids of 16 now, right? I can't express to people how good he was. Like, when people get like overhyped, like he was just once every 30 years sort of like English player. He was just unreal. 18 years old, right? 18 years old. Was it Fenerbahce? I think it was them.
I think so. Debut hat trick.
Champions
Unreal.
League. And he takes the ball off a Giggsy, takes the ball, puts it down and scores that. I mean, it's just another level. It's just unreal. But other than that, like, I think, as you say, Rio, because I think he was just brilliant. I liked him at the Hammers, Leeds, and then you just knew there's players that you just know. Edwin as well, fantastic.
Yeah. To tie into what I was going to say, then, do you think that there's anyone out there at the moment where you think this is a no-brainer? Because to me, I think Elliot Anderson is a really good player. If Man United didn't get him, it wouldn't feel the same as missing out on a Rio Ferdinand or Rooney, because I think there's other players that it feels like maybe the difference between extremely good, very good, like it's kind of blurring a bit. That I don't see a world class. Potentially, I think there's a world class player in there, but I don't see someone that's going to be levels better than Matheus Fernandes. I think he is better than Matheus Fernandes at the moment, but I'm not sure whether in 2 years' time we're going to see a lot of difference.
Again, I don't. Again, I think I just don't see it now. As you say, it doesn't mean to say that he's not going to be there. But then here's another thing, right? Is that I think players like that need to be developed, and they need players around them who are already world class to bring them up. What we're saying here is we're going to have to bring this guy in. We've got no world class midfielders. If Casemiro was still here, I think he would pay dividends and really like help him out. Is Anderson, are we the right club for him? Nobody's asking that either, because we're going to be expecting him to come in. He's going to pay all that money. He's not world class yet. World class players sometime or potential need those players around him. If you look at, for example, if you went to Madrid where Luka Modric was there, etc., you could go, he's going to be like the next big thing. But why do people think that he can come here and we can lift him? Like, who have we in the last 5 years turned into an amazing player? I'd probably say there's more players that have come through the youth or come through here that we've made worse. So the question here again is that when he comes here, how do we get him to the world class player? Who's going to be here to do that? Can Carrick do it? Can the players around him do it? That's a question as well. Yeah, can we actually improve him?
That's a really good point as well, because if you start signing younger players, and we are doing that, coaching becomes more important in my view. That if you're signing people like Casemiro at the age we got, and what are you going to teach Casemiro about football? What are we going to teach Zlatan about football? But if you get someone like Matheus Fernandes, then clearly you've got to look at the coaching. I think there seems to be maybe like decent defensive coaching at Man United now. You look at improvements with Aiden Heaven, but again, Aiden Heaven is so young. People are already looking at, how many games is he going to play? He's 19 years old. I think people are looking like a bit too far ahead with this one. But this is something I think I can't remember if we've announced any extra coaches. We were looking at the Bayern Munich assistant manager, weren't we? So I think we're looking at that. Hopefully, that's got to be something Man United need to be mindful of, because there's no point in buying players with potential, is there, if you can't realise that potential? That would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? That'd be, for me, that's one of the things that Man United used to do extremely well, with people like, say, Cristiano Ronaldo is probably the shining example. I would say Giggs, maybe Scholes and Beckham are also examples where they improved massively from like their debut. And maybe with this one, maybe this is like a change to how, because Man United seem to be doing deals a little bit differently, going for younger players, going for more Premier League based players. You have to hope that, again, like JB, we're not going to know, are we, until my guess is that Man United must, surely they must be looking at this. Otherwise, there's no point in buying youngsters and not developing them. That would be ridiculous, wouldn't it?
One thing I will say, I think Anderson, when I look at him though, compared to everybody else, I do look at him and I go, like, he does carry a Forest. At times, I do think he picks them up. I do think he carries the team a little bit. But don't get me wrong, like, they're not a bad team, and I think they are a good team. But he strikes me as a player that when the chips are down, he can push a team up. And I think, for example, I'm going to use the really easy comparison here is with like a Roy Keane, right? Keane, was in a Forest team of senior pros. We bought him. Nobody knew that he was going to be to the level. And yes, he came into, I think, a team of Robbo was still here. I think Ince was here as well. And he came into senior pros. But even then, nobody knew. So the one thing I do see in him is I do see the leadership. I do see that drive. Maybe I don't see with other teams. And I do think that the good thing about him is that you can drop him. I think you'd be able to drop him into most teams and you're going to see consistency. So I think when you look at the numbers back him up. He is pretty much the best out there. It's just that I think he needs to go beyond the numbers. The numbers are great, but I think we need the personality. I think we need a leader. This position is so key that I think we need a future captain there. I do.
That's what people are looking at. People are like talking about a Brian Robson style player. But that's what people have been talking about when I've been discussing it. We'll probably be live for like just a few more minutes, JB. I don't want to keep you too long. But I was going to say, we've gotten this one that I know a few people, I know some season ticket holders, and they've watched Anderson against us a few times, and they say that depending on the game situation, he's also incredibly good at shielding the back four if it's required. But we saw against Man United, say last season, right at the end of the season, that when Man United were dominant in that game, creating loads of chances, Elliot Anderson drove Forest on, didn't he? He made the game competitive. He got two really good assists. Like he showed, he outmuscled Amajola quite easily, but he showed like a bit of fight. Like he could have given up. The game was essentially, there was nothing for Forest to play for. And for me, that's kind of mentality where people don't give up even if the game's pointless. Like, I think is that something there. But I think a lot of people probably look at the team in Forest and West Ham as well, and just compare the team performance rather than individuals. I think they're both. I think Anderson is, for me, the best player we could buy, but I don't know whether we'll get him. So I'm just going to close the poll because I got a poll running. I didn't even look at it just to see what Man United fans are thinking, because usually it's like there's a bit of bias towards Man United because we're a Man United channel, but I want to try and get people's genuine opinion, because I did it yesterday and it was kind of 50-50. So 51% think he's going to play for City, 36% think United, still 13% are going for Forest. So yeah, maybe. Where do you think he's going to go just before we finish today?
He's not going to stay at Forest. I'm sorry. He's not going to. Like Forest, they may not need the money, but look, when you've got an asset sat there, they're like, give me the money, right? Look, if I'm a logical person, which I am, my head says again what I've been told, and I think what the media have been saying as well is I think that he goes to City, because I think that City, look, if they are dead set on this guy, I think they will get him. He's not a United fan. I think, they'll offer him 250 to 300. That's not an issue to them. I don't necessarily think it's all about the transfer fee. I think what people need to get their heads around as well is, look, you're dealing with a City. I know Pepper's gone, but what can we offer him? We've got to the Champions League for one season. City have won a treble in the last couple of years. They're in the Champions League every single season. They can offer that. They can't offer Pep. I do think the Pep thing is like a massive deal. We've got to really show ambition as well. I think that how we get him is if we really make a play for him. Like, we've got to really say, look, you look at the history of us. We're in the Champions League now. We're looking to buy the next big players. How we get him is that we have to really push. If I'm a betting man, I would still go for City. I just think they're just going to have too much. But more than ever, I still think this is because I was just like, I'm not even going to talk about him anymore because it was done and dusted. I think the conversation has now changed, and I do think we are there. I think City will win it, but who knows? Who knows?
It's not like too many, though, is it? It's like with too many. I said there's a 2% chance we get too many, because he doesn't want to come, and Real Madrid don't want to sell him. And I was thinking that for me, there's literally nothing there. And some people are more optimistic. I think with this one, I can't remember what I said about Anderson. I think I might have said we're like, maybe it's like 80-20 to City. Now I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe it's like 60-40. Maybe Man United have got a chance. I don't know. I would still say for me, City's favourite. And I think if I look at any sort of polls I do live, it's always like kind of like slightly favouring City. But until it's a done deal, we never know. That I think that I still think City will get it over the line, because until Man United prove that they can land these targets, I'm going to be thinking that way. But I need to be proved wrong. Jim Radcliffe needs to prove me wrong and prove that he can get these targets instead of City. But we're gonna.
Sorry, and I was going to say, once he's done that, then the more that he does these deals, the fan base will be like, oh, actually, do you know what, Jim? You're not that bad. So this is an open statement to Ineos. Go and do the business. If you can do the business, you'll get fans on board. That's all you've got to do. Go and do the business.
Yeah. Also, one last point as well. If Man United did get this deal done and they did get a good left back option, and we have a good season, because that's what we want at the end of the day. It's about results. We want to have a good season. Next year in the transfer window, Man United might be offering something different as well. Maybe we're offering a title race to players, which we haven't done for a long time. And again, I don't think you can offer a title race until you actually do get into a title race. But once you do that, then if players look at joining Man United, we managed to get Mbeumo and Cunha to join Man United, and we were pretty much dreadful. So we said, look, we're rubbish, but we got a plan, and probably presented it a bit better than that one. But we said, look, this is our plan, and I think we might be taken a bit more seriously. So I think a lot of positives. And before we wrap up, I wanted to say I will be on JB's channel. I think it's 9:15 tonight.
About 9:15, yeah.
So I'll put a link in the comments. I know there's like a watch long on my channel, but I'm going to try and work out something. If I can do a stream myself, a solo stream, and then go to JB's stream, or I'll post a link and share it with people to get in JB's stream, then we'll do something like that. But the World Cup's going to be a bit of a pain, I think. It's just going to be throwing random games in the middle of the night our way, and like the news is going to be a bit weird. I'm guessing journalists will be in the USA as well, so maybe stories might come out at strange times as well. But I'll put a link. What I'll do is, as soon as the stream finishes, I'll put a link to JB's channel in the chat. And actually, I can probably post it in now. So make sure you check out this. Let me just find a link to your channel, JB.
Thanks, Rich.
Give me a second. This is like the beauty of live streaming. I'm usually prepared, and then I thought, oh, shit, I need to do this. Usually I schedule a stream, I think, right, and then something broke. I think actually I wrapped up a stream a week ago, and then as soon as I finished, the second I finished, someone messaged me and said, "Oh, Edison's here we go," and I was like, "Oh, come on." I did like a short stream. So the post link there, W United channel. I'll be there 9:15, talking about lots of different players, I think. So it's gonna be a different stream from this one. So getting there, it'll be a fun stream, I'm sure. And JB will be an excellent host. So cheers, guys, and we'll catch you guys later on today.